What's up, y'all? I'm Josh J. Hawk Hawkins, and this is our Deadly Class review. Today we're doing Deadly Class Episode 4. So let's jump right in. But before we do, once again, that opening theme song is my band, The Lion of Wall Street. You are on our page right now, so go and check out some other videos. We have a show called Good Time Style. We have another one called Evil Things. Go and check those shows out. Or you can just hang out and watch some more Deadly Class reviews. Clearly, if you've gotten to episode 4, you probably kind of like what you're seeing, or at least I hope you do. So, but if you're not going to watch some more videos after this one, click that link in the description. It's going to lead you to our Spotify. We're also on iTunes. You can find us pretty much anywhere. Google The Lion of Wall Street. Have some fun with it. All right, so let's jump into this episode 4 review. Like I was saying in the last video, the episodes are starting to take themes. I remember thinking that at episode 3, like, oh, these are kind of starting to take like I said, themes. And obviously, the second episode was a party, the third episode was a dance, and now we are at detention. And this whole episode is basically Breakfast Club being, as if Breakfast Club was redirected by Quentin Tarantino or something, So, but like I said, it really is sticking to this idea that I have that these episodes are kind of starting to take like small, themes, But so, the whole episode is a detention episode. We open with Brian Posehn, who I didn't think would actually come back, and has. I think we talked about that he felt like he was going to be a one-off, but he didn't, and he wasn't. But he's in the opening of this episode, and obviously it's a very comedic opening. He's sliding around in his underwear, partying at a Shabnam's house still, I believe, and Chester comes in, and Chester is the one who is basically the goat rapist and has the burnt face, very evil character, hillbilly type character, and he interrupts him after this comedic scene, and basically is still on his search for Marcus. After that, you slowly start to see different characters being taken away by these cloaked figures. The cloaked figures who basically are the administrators of the school, if you will. So as they're being all taken away, we cut to Billy, who's on the phone and very clearly distressed, and he basically kind of says, "I'm on my way," So let's see. There is a character named Yukio who's obviously at the end of I believe it was episode 2 or maybe 3. Yukio is the guy who basically receives some sort of money and a picture of Saya or something. And so obviously this is the guy who's going to be giving up Saya's whereabouts, giving information on her. So that's that character. I don't know how important he's going to be in the future, but that's his name. So the students are at detention. It's like I said, it's very Breakfast Club, and instead of them just being in detention after school or whatever, they're going to be forced to stay there the entire weekend. So let's see, off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember everybody. There was a very kind of expendable character in there. I can't remember his name, so you have this expendable character, you have Marcus, you have Saya, Chico, and Victor and Petra. So kind of an eclectic mix. And really what's happening is these are all the students that were caught after the prank, legacy hazing got so out of control at the dance. These are all the students that got caught. They are in detention now for the entire weekend. Let's see. At some point during this episode, Maria approaches Willie for a passport, because they are not in detention. They're not the ones that got caught during this whole prank war. And Maria approaches Willie for a passport, and Willie's very clearly confused, since Maria is affiliated with the cartel, and obviously they should be able to get that for her. But she doesn't want Chico to know. Maria and Chico, it's heating up. She's desperately wanting to get away from him. It's becoming more and more heated at this point. And Willie's a nice guy. It's not just about keeping his reputation. He wants to be liked. He wants to have friends there, and he eventually just wants to get out of that school. But he feels for someone like Maria, who wants to get away from someone who's clearly insanely abusive and insanely awful like Chico. So it's very clear that he basically agrees to do that. We're cutting to Billy at home. He's at home. His mom is cooking. She's cooking up some eggs, and clearly they're just gross whenever he goes to eat them. And she has to tell him that basically, they weren't made with milk. They were made with mayo that she had left over, or something to that effect. And it's just obvious that, his father's an abuser, lost money again, and he's just tired of this. Eventually his dad shows up and basically tells him, if you don't like it, you can basically get the hell out, and that's going to become more important towards the end of the episode. Let's see. So while we're back in detention, the students are trying, they're discussing that there's some basically famous confiscation room, and Pietro knows where it's at. She basically says, I know where this place is at. I can get us anything because there's just going to be a ton of amazing stuff in here. I mean, you got to think about it. This is a place for killers and, so you kind of imagine the amazing amount of insane things that are going to be in the confiscation room, So they eventually go there, and there's this really amazing scene that's kind of just a cut scene as they're walking through. But it's Victor and Chico talking about RoboCop. And the scene is just hilarious. Victor clearly does not understand RoboCop, and I could watch 10 more minutes of Victor not understanding RoboCop and Chico trying to explain what RoboCop is. It's hilarious. We don't have to get too much into that, but it's just a great scene. Rewind it, watch it over again because it was really enjoyable for me. So obviously, after this, they make it into the confiscation room. And the detention is in the back. The detention room that they're taken to is in the back of a restaurant. I know it sounds odd, but it's hidden away. Everything about this place, all these things that they're doing, it all has to be hidden. So Yukio follows them, sees Saya go into this restaurant, and basically, sees that they've taken Saya into the back of this restaurant, and clearly gives this information to some people. And so these two guys show up, these two masked men enter the restaurant, and obviously, they have masks, they have weapons, so they're clearly a part of some sort of, syndicate. So obviously the plot thickens at this point. So let's see. Going through some of the stuff, we see Master Lin at home, and they're almost making him a very understanding, very almost likable character. And although you see him manipulating at some points, you can see that he has feelings. And I don't remember it being like that in the comic at all. Master Lin just very much comes across as this is what has to be done. This is what will be done. It doesn't care one way or the other. You know what I mean? If you're not going to do what he wants done, then that's it for you. That's it. But they really flesh out his character in the show. So, I'm not sure if that's because Benedict Wong is playing him and he's just kind of a likable, sweet guy or something like that. And it's just kind of showing through in the character. But, I do know that he's just not very likable in the comics. So, but they show him at home, and clearly I think he's very upset about the altercation that happened in episode 3 with Jurgen. So now they're in the confiscation room. They have their hands on all this amazing stuff. There's a dirt bike in the corner. There's pop rocks at some point. But Chico, he puts on the Cure, and it's kind of this really amazing moment. And he clearly doesn't know anything about them, but Marcus is kind of thrown by this. Like, what, do you even, like, how do you even know who the Cure is, basically, And you find out that it's Chico's little brother's favorite band and favorite record, and his little brother is dead. So it's a really sad scene that might explain just a little bit of why Chico is the way he is. And obviously he's not comfortable talking about it, so he immediately just starts punking on Marcus. And so then you go out, and you see the two masked men making their way into the room. And Youth Brigade is actually playing during this scene. I thought that was pretty great. Youth Brigade are a great band, so go and check those out. Go and check them out. I tend to talk a little bit about the music, not as much as I did, I think, in the episode 1 and 2 reviews, but I do think it's important to point out that The Cure and Youth Brigade were in this episode, so that's really cool. So, let's see. Eventually, when those two masked men make it to the back, it's very clear that they're after Saya, and they are just cutting their way. They don't care who gets in their way. They are going to get to Saya. They kill I can't remember what the character's name was off the top of my head. I might have it written down here. Jaden, I think is his name. Jaden. Random stoner, kind of a losable character. He wasn't really needed, so it's obviously, it makes sense that that's why they kill him. But Petra and Victor are clearly, very wounded in the middle of this fight of them trying to escape these two masked men who are trying to get to Saya. So we come to find out that they are members of the Kuroki. They are her cousins. I think it was like the Kamikas or something like that. I'm not going to try to pronounce it. So, but they are two of them. The two of them are her cousins, and so it obviously makes this whole thing very personal. Chico eventually discovers a vent, and Marcus notices he's gone, and it's a very strained thing. Like, they have to get out of there. They have to find help for Victor and Petra, who are dying on the floor, bleeding out. It's a very intense episode. There's a lot of fighting. There's a lot of there's fun parts. There's sad parts. There's fight parts. Really kind of one of the better episodes that I've seen so far. Eventually, they do get their hands on Saya and are making their way out. And this is after, basically Chico's the one who discovers a way out and then locks them in, so that eventually those two masked men knock out Marcus and take Saya with them. And as they're about to exit the restaurant, Master Lin walks in. So what's about to go down. They're carrying Saya. Master Lin's about to go at them. There's 2 against 1. And in flies Marcus with a frying pan, which is just a great weapon, and just knocks one of them right over the head with it. And he drops Saya, and a whole big fight breaks out between the 3 of them. And eventually, one of them is killed in the process. One of the 2 brothers, the 2 of Saya's cousins that came to get her, is killed, and Saya's the one who does the killing, and it's a very emotional scene. You can tell that she understands that they're just 2 of her family members that are doing their job, that are just following their orders, and you rip away the mask, and immediately you see a person. You don't see a mask anymore. You see a man dying, and you see a family member dying, and it's a sad moment, even though these 2 characters were out to kill her. I felt like a lot of this episode was them pushing Marcus and Saya's characters closer. Saya's a very tough character, hard to break through, and to see Marcus to see Marcus fight so hard to save Victor and Petra, and to save her, I think maybe that might have been a lot of the point of the episode, was to push those 2 characters together. And I think that becomes more clear because I watched the episode a couple of times now, And especially after like the second or third viewing, that's kind of what I was picking up on. Like, oh, this was an episode made to really get those two characters, closer. Finally, let's see, and also, because it shows them when they're talking, and at some point it shows them holding hands, like kind of closely holding hand, like very shyly holding hands, and so that's really what the theme of the episode became about for me. But until really the end of the episode, there's actually a few. It feels like there's 3 scenes at the end, and all of them feel like they're about to end the episode. Every single one of them kind of felt like, oh, okay, this is the end of the episode, and then another one played, and then it was like, okay, well, I guess that was the end of the episode, and then another one played, So it really kind of felt like that after all that stuff went down between Marcus and Saya and everything, and they're holding hands. I thought that was going to be the episode, but it wasn't. Eventually, we see that Willie got the passport for Maria. He hides it in a comic book, and so Maria has her passport. So that's another scene that was towards the end of the character. And now the final scene is Billy beaten, and it's a tough scene, I liked it a lot, like it's kind of over the top, but I liked that because I felt like that is Billy's personality. He's over the top, he's crazy. And I really felt like I've known so many kids like Billy in my life that, when I'm seeing him and he's just over the top and crazy and, it made the scene more real for me when he was reacting in such an almost like over the top fashion. He's giving this monologue about his father, which also felt very Breakfast Club to me. Let's see, it's Judd Nelson's character gives this monologue, no dad, and he goes into one of those, and I felt like, I'm not sure if they did that on purpose, because clearly the whole episode felt very Breakfast Club to me. Like I said, Breakfast Club, taken over by Quentin Tarantino or something like that. And when he's giving this monologue, it kind of feels like that scene in Breakfast Club. Obviously with a lot more at stake. He's really beaten and he's really, bleeding, and he's scared for his mom and dad, or not his mom and his little brother, because he really just thinks that his little brother's this really good kid, and it's a very sad scene. But I really couldn't, still, even watching it, I still couldn't help but kind of make the Breakfast Club connection there. Let me know if you agree with that. Yes, it was a banner year at the Bender House. I remember that from Breakfast Club. But yeah, so everything about this episode really felt like a love letter to the Breakfast Club. Obviously, with the deadly class, like trademark hyperviolence. And I guess more the importance of the end of this episode is that at the end of the episode, that's when Billy basically says, I want to go on a trip. I want to go to Vegas. And Marcus is basically like, why? And he basically says, to kill my father. And so it's, obviously the next episode is going to be a trip, which follows along with my theory that a lot of these episodes are very, like, one's this, one's that, which I kind of like. So, episode 4, very Breakfast Club in a lot of different scenes, and leading up into episode 5, the trip, basically. I can't remember the title of this episode, but let's stay tuned for episode 5, which was a little bit a little bit over the top and a lot of fun, but we'll get there. So that's it for Deadly Class episode 4 review. Once again, go check out my band The Lion of Wall Street, and we will see you here in a little bit.